The rain had been falling for hours by the time I reached the tall glass doors of the law firm, each drop striking the pavement like a quiet accusation. My hands trembled as I clutched the manila envelope containing the divorce papers, the edges already soft from how tightly I had held them since leaving the apartment that morning. I had come alone. No husband beside me. No one to hold an umbrella. No one to say that maybe we should try one more time. The building loomed above me, cold and indifferent, and for a moment I wondered if the sky itself was mourning the end of something that had died long before this day. I stepped inside, water dripping from my coat, and the receptionist barely looked up as she directed me toward the conference room where the final signatures waited. That was when I saw him through the rain-streaked window, standing outside beneath a black umbrella, a bouquet of deep red roses cradled against his chest as if he had been waiting for years, not minutes. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that sometimes arrive when we least expect them, please take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that are still waiting for their own rose-filled turning points. I had not always been the kind of woman who walked into a lawyer's office alone. Once, I had believed in forever with the same fierce certainty that children believe in magic. His name was Daniel, and when we first met in our early 20s he had promised me the world with nothing more than a crooked smile and a second-hand motorcycle. We married young, full of plans that felt unbreakable. A little house with a garden. Children who would know they were loved. Evenings spent laughing over burnt dinners and cheap wine. For a while those dreams held. Then the years began to wear them thin. Daniel's late nights at the office became later. His phone lit up with messages he never explained. The garden we planted together filled with weeds while he traveled for work that somehow never quite provided the security he claimed it would. I stopped asking questions because the answers always left me feeling smaller. When our daughter Lila was born, I thought a child might soften him, might remind him of the man who once carried me across a flooded street just to make me laugh. Instead, the distance grew. He was present in photographs and absent in every way that mattered. Birthday parties where he arrived after the candles were blown out. School plays where the seat beside me stayed empty. Arguments that ended with him slamming doors and me whispering apologies into the dark for sins I had never committed. By the time Lila turned 8, I had become an expert at pretending. I smiled at parent-teacher conferences. I told friends that Daniel was simply driven, that success demanded sacrifice. Inside the apartment the silence between us had become a living thing, thick and heavy, settling over the furniture like dust. I worked 2 jobs, morning shifts at a bookstore and evening hours cleaning offices, so that Lila would never feel the sharp edge of our finances. Daniel's income mysteriously never stretched far enough for the little extras that make childhood soft. New shoes when hers grew tight. A second-hand bicycle she had pointed at in a shop window for months. I bought those things myself, counting coins and skipping lunches, while he upgraded his phone and disappeared for weekend networking trips. The worst nights were the ones when Lila asked why Daddy never read her stories anymore. I would invent excuses about important meetings and then lie awake listening to the rain, wondering how a love that had once felt endless could shrink into something so small it barely cast a shadow. The decision to divorce did not arrive in a single dramatic moment. It accumulated, like water behind a dam, until one ordinary Tuesday when Daniel forgot Lila's school recital entirely. I sat in the auditorium holding a bouquet of grocery store flowers, watching other fathers lift their daughters onto their shoulders after the final song, and something inside me simply gave way. That night I told him I was done. He looked up from his laptop, frowned as if I had interrupted an email, and said we could talk about it later. Later never came. Papers were drawn up. Appointments were scheduled. And somehow, even for the end of our marriage, he could not make time. So I went alone, the envelope heavy in my hands, the city rain matching the ache behind my eyes. I signed the documents in a quiet room that smelled of coffee and old paper. The lawyer spoke gently about timelines and next steps, but her words drifted past me. All I could think about was Lila waiting at her after-school program, trusting that her mother would always come back. When I finally stepped outside again, the rain had softened into a fine mist. That was when I noticed him still standing there, the billionaire with the roses. I did not know his name yet. I only knew that he looked like someone who belonged in a different story, tall, composed, wearing a coat that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, yet holding those flowers with a tenderness that did not match the sharp lines of wealth. His eyes found mine through the mist, and for a strange suspended second the noise of the street faded. He walked toward me without hurry, as if he had all the time in the world and had already decided how he wanted to spend it. He introduced himself as Alexander Hale, though the name meant nothing to me then. Later I would learn that the Hale Group owned half the skyline I had been walking beneath for years. In that moment he was simply a man with rain on his shoulders and roses in his arms. He told me he had seen me arrive earlier, alone, and something about the way I carried myself had made him wait. He said the roses were not a strategy or a performance. They were an impulse he had not been able to ignore. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it, a stranger offering flowers outside a divorce lawyer's office, but the laugh caught in my throat because his expression held no mockery. Only a quiet recognition, as if he somehow understood the weight of the envelope still tucked under my arm. We stood on the wet sidewalk while traffic hissed past, and he asked if I would let him walk me to my car. I almost refused. Pride is a stubborn companion after years of being overlooked. Yet something in his voice, steady, unhurried, made the refusal feel heavier than acceptance. So we walked. He did not press for details about the papers. He simply matched his steps to mine and held the umbrella so that the mist never quite reached me. When we reached my old sedan with its dented door and fading paint, he placed the roses carefully on the passenger seat as if they were something fragile and important. Then he asked if he could see me again, not as a man who expected yes, but as someone offering a door that I could close at any time. I said I needed to think. He nodded, gave me a card with only a phone number, and watched me drive away without trying to follow. That night Lila noticed the roses the moment I walked through the door. She asked if Daddy had sent them. The question landed like a soft bruise. I told her they were from a kind stranger who had seen that I looked tired. She accepted the answer with the simple trust of children and helped me put the flowers in a jar because we did not own a proper vase. While she did her homework at the kitchen table, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at Alexander's card. Everything practical in me said to throw it away. Men with that kind of money did not wait in the rain for women signing divorce papers. They did not offer roses without calculating the return. Yet the memory of his eyes kept returning, clear, steady, free of the impatience I had grown used to. The following days unfolded in the careful rhythm of survival. Mornings at the bookstore where I alphabetized novels about love that lasted. Evenings cleaning empty offices while Lila stayed with a neighbor. In between I navigated the quiet logistics of ending a marriage, changing bank accounts, updating school forms, explaining to Lila in gentle pieces that sometimes grown-ups decide to live in different houses so that the love left between them can breathe again. Daniel called once. He asked if the papers were signed and whether he needed to do anything else. When I said no, the conversation ended. The absence of fight should have felt like relief. Instead it confirmed what I had already known, the marriage had been over long before the signatures. A week after the lawyer's office, I found myself dialing the number on the card. Alexander answered on the second ring, as if he had been expecting the call without demanding it. We met for coffee in a small place far from the glass towers of his world. He listened more than he spoke. When I finally told him, in careful fragments, about the years of being unseen, he did not offer empty comfort or easy solutions. He simply stayed present, the way someone stays when they are not waiting for their turn to talk. Over the following weeks those conversations grew longer. He learned Lila's favorite ice cream flavor and the way she still checked the closet for monsters even though she claimed she was too old. I learned that his own life had not been the unbroken ascent the magazine suggested. There had been a younger brother lost too early, a father whose approval had always been conditional, a stretch of years when success had felt like a room with no windows. The roses, he admitted one evening, had been an act of recognition. He had seen a woman walking into an ending alone and had remembered what it felt like to need someone to simply stand outside and wait. Falling in love again did not arrive like lightning. It arrived like the slow return of color after a long gray season. Alexander never tried to erase Daniel from our history. He never competed with the past. Instead, he created space for a different future, one where I did not have to carry everything by myself. When Lila finally met him, she studied him with the solemn assessment of a child who has learned that adults sometimes disappear. He did not try to win her with gifts. He asked about her drawings and listened to her explanations of invented worlds as if they mattered more than board meetings. Slowly, the wariness in her eyes softened into curiosity, then into something warmer. There were challenges, of course. Old fears do not dissolve simply because someone new arrives with roses. There were nights when I pulled away, certain that kindness this consistent must eventually reveal its cost. There were public moments when people recognized Alexander and looked at me with the sharp curiosity reserved for women who appear beside powerful men. Whispers about gold digging. Speculations about how long it would last. I carried those voices home and turned them over in the dark until Alexander noticed the distance and asked, without accusation, what storm I was weathering alone. Learning to let him stand beside me instead of in front of me became its own quiet work. One evening, months after the divorce was finalized, we walked through the same park where Daniel and I had once pushed Lila's stroller in silence. Alexander stopped beneath an old oak and told me he had spent years collecting things, companies, properties, accolades, only to realize that none of them waited outside in the rain with flowers. He said he had not been looking for someone to complete him. He had been looking for someone who understood that even people who seem to have everything can still feel the ache of empty rooms. Then he asked if I would consider building a life that included both of us choosing, every day, to stay. I did not answer immediately. I thought of the manila envelope, the lonely signatures, the years of shrinking myself to fit a marriage that had no room left. I thought of Lila's laughter returning in fuller notes. I thought of the way Alexander's presence made ordinary evenings feel like something worth protecting. When I finally said yes, it was not the dramatic yes of first love. It was quieter, deeper, shaped by everything we had already survived alone. The wedding was small, held in a garden that reminded me of the one Daniel and I had once planned and abandoned. Lila scattered petals with solemn importance. There were no grand speeches about destiny. Only the simple truth that two people who had known loneliness had found, in each other, a place to rest without disappearing. Years later, when the rain falls against the windows of the home we built together, I sometimes remember the woman who walked into that law firm alone, certain that the story of her heart had already reached its final page. I remember the stranger with the roses who refused to let that page be the last. And I understand now that some of the most powerful love stories do not begin with perfection. They begin with someone willing to stand outside in the weather, holding flowers, waiting for a person who has almost forgotten how to be found. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you that endings can become beginnings and that kindness still finds its way through the rain, please let us know by liking the video, leaving a comment, sharing it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribing to Kindness Corner so that more stories of second chances can reach the people still waiting for their own. Before we close, I have one special request. If these words stirred something in you, if you believe that no one should have to sign the hardest papers of their life alone, please leave a comment right now and tell us what second chance you are still hoping for, or what act of unexpected kindness once changed your path. Your words might be the exact light someone else needs tonight. And so the rain continues to fall on city streets and quiet gardens alike, but somewhere a woman who once walked alone now walks with a hand in hers, and the roses that began as an impulse have become a promise renewed with every ordinary, extraordinary day.